Hello, welcome back to my spot of the internet. It's honestly crazy to say that half of 2026 has already just flown by. But during this time, there has been a very humble selection of books that have carried me through this journey. And I wanted to just share my key takeaways, my recommendations, and my overall thoughts and feelings on these books. Something I really appreciate about books in general is that they are like a key to enlightenment. They help you understand so many things about society. So many lessons are learned about being human, about history, about philosophy, life in general, even science. So I think that's why I really appreciate pieces of literature, as well as the fact that we're not limited in writing. You can write about literally anything. Writing is so versatile, it's so freeing, and that's why I think it's important to share your thoughts and feelings and interpretations of literature with people on the internet. As someone who loves to dive deep into topics, this is a way for me to share not only my feelings but also discover my own thoughts that emerge from what I've learned of these books. Obviously, I've read some of these a few months ago, so it's kind of like a test to see how much I still remember or how much I've learned from these pieces of literature. Now, the books that I will be exploring today, first we have Wuthering by Emily Bronté. We have 1,000 Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini. We have Project Hail Mary by Weir. And we have Água, Viva by Clarice Lispector. I only have the physical copies of these two because it's good to save money on books. They are quite expensive actually nowadays. Also, I don't have much space for books, but also it's good to have a mix and match of different forms of media, though I am really looking forward to expanding my book collection, but that's besides the point. Now let's get started with Wuthering Heights. So I read this in April of this year. Actually, I started it in 2025, but this book has honestly taken me a lot of time to finish. It is a very chunky book. Let me see how many pages it is. 400 pages. Yes, 400 pages. This is the Penguin's Classics copy, so maybe it might be different for other copies, but I have Penguin Classics. Both of these are Penguin Classics. And so I think what I enjoyed the most, definitely Emily Bronté's very vivid, authorial style of writing. I really appreciate the fact that she was able to paint such a vivid and clear picture of a scenery, of a person, of emotions, of a situation or a dynamic, with, yes, flowery, metaphorical-like vocabulary, but also the fact that it was so intelligently placed. What I mean is that her words aren't just random or meant to be poetic to show off. She really intentionally uses her vocabulary to paint this clear yet very enigmatic picture for the reader. Something that isn't very conventional is that I felt like there was not really a clear plot or a clear issue that was being solved. I think it was very similar to Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee because of the way that we are exploring the characters more than actually, going through a series of plot lines. I think understanding character dynamics and appreciating the relationship between certain characters was far more valuable than trying to understand what issue they're trying to solve. I think Heathcliff and Catherine had such an interesting dynamic. I did write it in my notes here somewhere that they had sort of a toxic relationship with each other that was, there's some resentment to people outside of their interesting, intimate connection, and they plot a lot with each other. They're very formidable and they're sort of wayward. I kind of attribute them to sort of like the three evil witches in Macbeth, and they kind of reminded me of that. They conspire with each other against many people, especially Edgar. Catherine gives people hell. She's a very interesting character. She causes a lot of drama. The first Catherine, I mean. She stirs up a lot of drama. She had many fits. It was very interesting to see, you know, unconventional characters and this very unique bond. The way that it was described and illustrated by Emily Bronte was certainly something to behold. Heathcliff is commonly referred to as a perverse, outlandish, devilish man because he has this cheek to him, this impertinence, which I've learned from this book. I never knew that was a word before. And I think this is quite similar to Catherine as well. They're like two peas in a pod. They are quite devilish, I would say. Malicious, I don't know. It's difficult to say. They're sort of counterparts of each other. I feel like Catherine is so intrinsically like Heathcliff, yet they're never romantically together, which was interesting to see. We know that, spoiler alert, if you don't want spoilers you can skip ahead, but when Catherine dies, Heathcliff kind of goes insane. You can see that their souls are sort of connected with each other. Nevertheless, I really appreciated how each character was so unique, and exploring their dynamics with other people in this book was very fascinating. I really appreciated the fact that there's subtle nuances and the things that made them very complex were highlighted so intentionally by Emily Bronte. I just feel like her writing is so intentional. There's nothing mushy about it. She's quite literally like standing on business. She's not being overly abstract or overly confusing, which I think Clarice Lispector kind of has that situation going on, but we're getting there. I think her writing is so clear for the reader, yet at the same time it's so enchanting, and it's something that I would read this book a million times, just because of the way that things are described, the way that she uses her words to paint such a vivid, interesting picture of this small world yet filled with drama. And that's what I love the most, I guess, is this entire book is so rich, I guess. Its essence is incredibly valuable, and I think this is why people should read it, because we should also learn the skill of how to talk about characters and emotions in a very intentional, accurate way. So my key takeaway of this book is definitely her style of writing. Of course, that's what I'm harping on the entire time about. I guess I want to learn this skill of being able to enchant the reader, make them read something that isn't arbitrary, that isn't average, but also isn't too complex. Like, you can see what's happening very, very clearly in each scene. Even in the most boring parts of this book, I still felt really, enticed to continue reading, simply due to the authorial skill, just because of the way that it's so engaging and so enigmatic. So I would rate this book let's give it a 4.5 out of 5. Although it was spectacular, like the writing really makes up for it. I would say the 0.5 that's missing from the rating is simply due to the fact that I enjoy a good plot. Nevertheless, would read again a million times. Now, my second book is 1,000 Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini. Now, where do I even start with this book? My goodness. So I read this very, very recently, actually. I finished it on the 8th of June, I believe. I started it a week before that. So let me tell you, I did not stop reading this book. I would say it's a very lengthy book as well. On the PDF, the number of pages is 312. But I actually don't know how long it is on a physical copy. Nevertheless, it's long, but you don't even feel like it's long when you start reading it. So this is a beautifully crafted tale of two female protagonists who are, I guess in the best way I can say this, is navigating the uncertainties of a misogynistic and politically challenged environment. Set against the backdrop of a very changing Afghanistan, I think these women have shown lots of endurance, and there is simply so much suffering and sacrifice that I could feel from these characters. I think similarly to Emily Bronté, in a less classical way, Hosseini describes each scene with such emotional tension. Honestly, the emotional value is extremely rich here. I felt like in every scene I was actually there and I was the one experiencing everything. It was as if I was being transported into a different realm. I was being transported into the world of Layla and Maryam, and it was certainly something extraordinary. Now, I do have a Goodreads review of this book that I think will be able to articulate my appreciation of this book more. Obviously, articulating words while you're speaking is less accurate than what you have to say when you're writing it down. So I will share snippets of my review, but genuinely, I think you learn a lot about society and you gain a lot of empathy. It's like your heart unlocks a new chamber for empathy when you read this book. And the way that the suffering of women is portrayed it's so heartbreaking. I think when you see the way that women have such a strong willpower and a determination, the way that hope is explored in this book is seriously so precious. But I think I can explain this better with my review. Now, my review begins with, this masterpiece was among the first that truly shifted me emotionally. Hosseini's engaging, vivid writing style transported me into the realm of Layla and Maryam so effectively that I felt every scene vibrate in my body. The way women and men are portrayed in this book is so fascinating amongst the changing Afghan political environment. I came to feel immense sympathy for the women and the injustices that they faced. From the familial alienation faced by Nana, the perpetual misfortune of Maryam, and the beatings of Rashid endured by Layla, I came to feel this concoction of hatred, anger, sympathy, and as well as appreciation for the sacrifices that the women have made to deal with such a misogynistic, unjust society. One thing I will never get over is Maryam's sacrifice, and what broke me the most was Nana's words that became true, that a woman's fate is to endure. At first, I too was under the fairy tale-like trance that young Maryam was in, believing that there existed a world of justice and hope for her, but I soon came to the harsh reality that most rays of hope in this book were like mirages. They seemed so close to touch, so palpable, yet terribly out of reach. And one of the most stark quotes from this piece that really made me stop was, like a compass needle that points north, a man's accusing finger always finds a woman. What I found so honestly jolting from this was actually this quote, because it was the premise of everything that happened, that every single man in this book, except one, every single man that has caused trouble for these women, their confinements have always limited them, always crushed them, have always, tried to diminish them. But what I saw that was very evident to me was this fire that these women had in their hearts, in their chest, the spiritual, emotional willpower to keep going, to keep searching for a life of hope, a life of freedom. Even if it was the most tiniest sliver of hope, they went full blast towards it. And honestly, I came to understand the sheer scope of women's endurance, that despite all misfortune, they keep going, keep moving themselves, keep going. Despite all the beatings that they received, all of the physical torture, emotional torture, betrayal, these women kept going until the very end, Although the themes of oppression and gender inequality were one of the most, some of the most prominent themes of this book, I will say that also societal judgment was another key feature, and the manipulation, the malicious manipulation of religious doctrine. I think the way that Islam was twisted politically, it really added more emotional weight, because what I believe is, Islam is the religion of peace. It was never meant to be that way. So when you see the way that society can twist things so easily, can take away rights, can, become a a self-annihilating thing, a perpetual twisting of, the truth, it really hits you. I can't relate as much. I mean, my lifestyle, my life is completely different to the one that these women faced, but what I can take away from this is that we have so much to work on as a society. We have so much empathy that we need to give. So we need to think twice about the decisions that we make. We need to think more carefully about how we operate as a community, as a society, how we approach each other. I think this is honestly a great historical addition to literature, and it's definitely a piece I would recommend to anyone. I mean, the themes are very, very heavy. It's very difficult to process at times, but it is incredibly essential to read. I think we tend to get sucked into our little bubbles, our safe bubbles, wherever we are, especially in countries that have a completely different political climate to one of Afghanistan. We need to appreciate the things that we have as well. And we also have to remember the goal that we're trying to reach. We're constantly trying to ensure the truth is preserved, and that equality is something that we prioritize on a daily basis. My rating, 5 stars, obviously. Honestly, the plot was something that just changed me. I mean, I can usually tell when there's a plot twist, but I couldn't tell the plot twists here. They were so unexpected, so emotionally, psychologically jolting. And so that's why I really appreciate this piece of literature. Now onto the third book. We have Project Hail Mary, on a more positive note. And so this book is by Andy Weir. He's I would say a pioneer in science fiction. He's also the author of The Martian. And so I think everyone has known the movie adaptation has come out recently, and that's exactly why I wanted to read it, because I thought, okay, well, I'll read the book and then I'll go watch the movie, which I do not regret, by the way, which I'll get to in a second. Project Hail Mary, a science fiction book. I've never read a science fiction book in my entire life, so I don't actually know what possessed me to try this out, but I'm glad I did. I mean, it's important to get out of your comfort zone. So essentially, this book follows Dr. Ryland Grace, a middle school teacher who also has a PhD in molecular biology, but he's past that now. And he's sort of a shy, awkward, but also extremely hilarious protagonist, and I came to really appreciate the way that his character is developed as a hero. He's not your typical hero. Usually heroes are very self-confident and very strong at the beginning of their journey, but we see that Grace is actually someone who never believed in himself in the first place. He always tried to keep himself away from the spotlight, and was very self-critical, I'd say. However, I think what the book illustrates is his immense knowledge, his immense smartness, his intellect, and also his ambition. His ambition is so correct. He's definitely a man who, when faced with a dying star, and when pushed into the interstellar, he's someone who can find a silver lining, someone who's actually intrinsically very strong. Although he's not a typical macho man, he's someone who we relate to as everyday people. But we see that he's someone of great smarts, someone who can adapt themselves to a difficult situation. What I really liked is that Andy Weir is such an accurate scientific person. I mean, the way that the intricacy of astrophage, of physics, gravity, interstellar travel, it all seems so real despite it all being fictional. I genuinely believe that astrophage could become a real thing. Many suns are losing their light, they're dimming, and it's all due to these tiny creatures these tiny microorganisms called astrophage. And so Grace is on board the Hail Mary, a ship that is aiming to visit an unaffected star, Tau Ceti, to figure out why it's not being affected and try to find a solution for mankind. And yes, I was very happy to know that this book ends on a happy ending. It was also very satisfying to see that there wasn't any romance of any sort. Following the character of Eva Strat, a very no-nonsense woman who is basically the chair or the leader of Project Hail Mary. You would think that there was tension between the female lead and the male lead, but actually there wasn't any, which I loved because it was all, I guess, revolving around hope of humanity, of community. There was a lot of platonic friendship as well between Rocky and Grace. So much emotional impact, I think, especially in the movie, but somehow you feel sympathy for an alien, which I never thought I would. Certainly so many points of tension, very, very interesting plot, which I think you know by now, I do love a good plot. It's wonderful. It teaches you so many lessons. It teaches you how to deal with moments of tension, how to grasp certain, emotions in those moments. And so I think, although it was not typically my kind of book, I really liked it, and I would probably pick up another Andy Weir book in the future. So I'm going to read you a little bit of my Goodreads review, just to give you a different perspective that's probably more articulate. I've never read a piece of this genre before with such a laid-back and extremely relatable narrator and main character, Dr. Ryland Grace. Reinforcing the fact I have never read sci-fi, let alone a book void of flowery writing as such, I may have enjoyed this book far more than any other. Set amongst the backdrop of Earth facing the dimming light of its star, I was brought into the highly emotional, technical, frantic, yet tender and ultimately human development and journey of the Hail Mary. It didn't need any high-level vocabulary or classic metaphors to make me tear up at times. I appreciated the humorous tone, occasionally jolted to life-threatening stakes. The idea that creatures of starkly different biological makeup managed to come together when survival was on the line, it just makes me realize that humans can come together despite their own differences. I finished this midway through May, and I think I watched the movie the day before it went out of cinemas, but my goodness, the cinematic experience was something so engaging, and Ryan Gosling did a very good job of depicting Grace. I think they're so very connected. I could 100% see Ryan Gosling playing Grace. It was very accurate, and I really appreciated the way that the book sequence matched the movie sequence a lot. Grace could have been portrayed a little more intelligent in the movie, but nonetheless, I still really appreciated it. I think I will definitely try sci-fi more. It's good to expand your horizons, not to read just one type of genre all the time. So I would recommend this book to anyone who wants a light-hearted but also very touching and fun book to read. Now on to our last book is Água Viva by Clarice Lispector. So I read this book in March of this year, and you can see it's a very skinny book. It's very small. It's nothing that's in your face that you need a lot of time to digest, but I will say that it was sort of difficult to understand at times. So I will say that Clarice Lispector's writing, especially in this book, is something that's rather abstract, but very, out of this world. It's almost like something I shouldn't read. It feels like very fifth dimensional. I'm not sure how to really articulate it because I still don't understand this book at all. This book has been recommended many times on the internet, so inevitably I had to pick it up, and it was relatively short too. I will say that although I don't understand it, I do feel like what this is a very intimate, palpable, yet at the same time out of reach look into Lispector's mind. It's something so abstract, so fierce, and so enigmatic that no one, I guess, is supposed to understand, because I actually don't think that Lispector understands it either. She's giving an account, a general account, like as if she's pulling the thoughts out of her brain, pulling the hidden notes and nuances out of her brain and putting them on paper. It's so theoretical, it's very spiritual, I'd say. A way that I can articulate this better is through my Goodreads review, so I'll read it to you as well. Lispector's Água Viva was honestly such an intriguing read. I jumped into this book without ever experiencing this kind of transient, abstract, metaphorical, and very passionate writing before. Lispector extracts the juices from existence and squeezes them on the page. This book is neither to be understood or not understood. It's meant to be experienced in the instant. She speaks a lot about the instant now, where her repeating message seems to relate to the continuity and the immediacy of being. Now that's jogged my memory a lot, actually. That she speaks a lot about the present and the essence of humanity, the essence of a soul, of a vessel, of the mind, of being, I guess, the essence of being. I think that humans are very complex creatures, and so the way that she writes is almost like this thing that you shouldn't see. It's like the behind the scenes of your mind. Although I did find her writing quite unorthodox, hard to understand in many instances, highly unrelatable and largely jarring, it's meant to be a visceral and personal or spiritual cascade of thoughts. These thoughts seem to stem from death commonly, to others such as God, to creatures and organisms, and what it means to have a humanoid form, a vessel and a soul. She uses such strange yet fascinating metaphors, such as the mother cat eating its own placenta to describe being reborn. Something I found striking the most was her general sense of ambiguity and abstraction. She speaks neither religiously nor secularly, yet frequently makes mention of some spiritual force, occasionally referring to God, but not conventionally at all. She's very spiritual, almost as if she worships the religion of life itself. She's very vulnerable, exposes herself, and makes herself very open. She refers to God as a force, this omnipresent force, and I have no idea what to make of that, I guess. I think she's just very spiritually aware and alert and observant. It's like she's seeing something between these atoms that we humans aren't able to comprehend, but she's trying to grasp that essence of it, the essence of existence. So here's one thing that she said here. No, I was never modern, and this happens. When I think a painting is strange, that's when it's a painting. And when I think a word is strange, that's where it achieves the meaning. And when I think life is strange, that's where life begins. I think it is worth trying to read if you want to broaden your horizons a bit. Though I would say I would rate this sort of a 3 out of 5, maybe 2 out of 5, because as I said, I want something that is quite engaging, that is either through plot or through descriptive writing, something that, makes me feel something. Though I do really appreciate seeing very unique types of writing. Thank you so much for sticking until the end. I think what you have gathered from here is that what I appreciate in a book is its ability to make me feel something, to contribute to humanity. And even if pieces don't necessarily wow me as much or feel close to me emotionally or aren't as relatable as I'd hoped, it's important to see different kinds of literature and to see what the world has to offer, because you may think differently. It may change your entire mindset on something. It may make you think differently. And so this is how I conclude my book review of mid-2026. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.